Hi there. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where I take your questions regarding American accent, English pronunciation, intonation, and everything you need to improve your personal and professional communication in American English. In today's class, we're going to be talking about how to pronounce longer words and syllables in words, looking at syllable stress, how that affects pronunciation and intonation. And of course, I'll be taking your questions. So feel free to type those in the chat and let me know what you'd like to know about American accent training and pronunciation. You can tell me a word you'd like help with or anything else that you've been working on that you need a little bit of help. I'll point you to resources on speechmodification.com and on my YouTube channel, Speech Modification Seattle, where you can find the answers to many of your questions regarding the American accent and pronunciation. Hi, nice to see you. If you're watching on Facebook, I do suggest that you come over to the YouTube live broadcast because that's where I can see the chat and respond. And so that's if you want to be interactive as part of the class, then you can use the link in the Facebook to come on over. If you're watching on Facebook and you just like to watch, that's okay too. So as I said, today we're going to be talking about longer words and how to pronounce them. I do have a lot of information about this on my website on speechmodification.com, and I cover it in my online courses. So that's a great way to learn about overall pronunciation and intonation for the American accent. The online courses have a 2-week free trial, and their subscription rate is under $5 a month. So it's a very inexpensive way to begin to really focus in and work on your American accent training. I also teach here in Bellevue, so take a look at my website if you're interested in joining one of the group classes. There'll be another round of those starting soon. And I do one-to-one training for individuals and also corporate groups, so you can check that out on speechmodification.com. So what's going on when we pronounce longer words? What are some of the things to watch out for? The tendency for non-native speakers, they can have a couple of different errors with longer words. First of all, of course, longer words have more sounds in them, so there's more pronunciation patterns that you can have trouble with. And for many people, pronouncing words that have difficult sounds, if they have multiple difficult sounds in them, that can be quite challenging. So even Americans will struggle sometimes with longer words that have a lot of R sounds or TH sounds or L sounds combined. And so I'll teach you some techniques for breaking those down and saying the sounds. But what I want to focus a little bit more on now is the fluency of these words, and when you're using them in connected speech, how they should sound. So one of the errors that I often hear with longer words for non-native speakers is that they're saying the longer word too evenly across all of the syllables in the word. So a syllable is a group of sounds that go together in a word. For example, the word organization has 4 syllables. Organization, 5 syllables. And so when I broke it down, organization, that's where all of the natural breaks happen in the word. And if I were to say organization, you can hear how that sounds. Doesn't sound fluent, it sounds different, hard to understand how that word is said. And so I need to know which parts of the word are stressed and which parts of the word are unstressed. Basically, the stressed syllables in the words are a little bit longer and more important, and the other ones go by much more quickly. So for organization, if I really think about it, the organa, those 3 syllables are very quick. Zay is longer, and shun is quick again. So organization, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And I say it without the sound, so you can really hear the rhythm of that word. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, short, 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 long, short, organization. And so if you're going too carefully or slowly across organization, it's not going to sound fluent. The pronunciation is going to sound different, even if you have all of the sounds correct in that word. We have a question, how to grow listening skills. Great question. So by doing more listening, and one of the things I often recommend for trying to improve your listening is to actually turn on closed captioning on television shows and on movies. You can also do it here on YouTube, although sometimes the closed captions on YouTube are not always totally accurate and they don't always match what the speaker is saying. But when I'm listening and reading along to what I'm listening to, I'm able to hear all of the words and sounds and match those up. And so if your reading and writing in English is better than your listening and speaking, take advantage of your reading and writing and use it to help you with your listening. Now, some people might say, don't read along, just listen, try to understand. And that is valid too. There are some things for which trying to comprehend just by hearing can be good. But there is research to show that your pronunciation and listening can improve if you're listening and reading, because you'll notice a lot of the smaller words that are harder to notice when you're just listening and harder to pronounce correctly when you're speaking. So that's one suggestion I have. And then also you can try podcasts, books on tape, books on CD or audiobooks, listening to more rich language. For conversational speech, we tend to use more simple language, and written language is more complex. So depending on the environment where you need to be listening and understanding, try to get practice in that particular environment. We have some people looking for practicing speaking and listening. And if you go to my website, speechmodification.com, I do have some links to some sites that are designed for people who are looking to practice with others. And so I'll just show you where you can find that on speechmodification.com. So if you go to go under the free practice and look at my blog, you'll find in the categories on the side of the blog that there is a category called online resources. So I'm going to click on that, online resources. And what will come up are some other resources besides my website that you will find helpful. So there's information about online courses, online dictionaries, and also the sites that I mentioned that talk about connecting with others. So here in the links, I've found improving your American access resources for learning. So there's some information about grammar, some listening skills. So one of the listening skills I recommend is the Learning English VOA News. They have some listening information. So you can find this on my website. And if you are looking on my website for help with any of these types of questions, feel free to use the Contact Me tools or email me, Christine@speechmodification.com, and I'll direct you to where you can find resources for that. So thanks for those great questions. Okay, we have a word that someone was talking about, a longer word that they struggle with, which is characteristics. And yes, that is a complicated word because there's a lot of different sounds in the word. So let's break it down for you. If I'm looking at the word characteristics, lots of syllables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the stress comes on this syllable, the second to last syllable. So these are quick, characteristics, and is held a little bit longer. So what do we need to know here? Care, even though it's spelled with CH, just sounds the same as this word care. Care, and then even though this is spelled like act, I don't really say characteristics. I say character. So that's a case where, because this syllable is unstressed, it's very short, and it's basically just an sound, which is called vowel schwa, and that's the symbol for the sound. So character, the T kind of goes together with that So I have 2 American R's in this word. You can get some help for American R on my American R playlist, but we just want to think about air and being our 2 vowels. Characteristics, just like that. Okay, so moving quickly through my unstressed syllables and more slowly through the stressed syllable characteristics. Also watching out for that we have a K and an S sound here at the end of characteristics. Yeah, good question. Thank you. I do see why you would have trouble with that, with the multiple R's, with where the syllable stress is, and having those combinations, consonant clusters at the end. Feel free to tell me about your word. If you're just joining us, we're looking at longer words and syllable stress and pronunciation for those longer words, how to get them fluently into your American speech. So, as I mentioned, one of the errors is being too even across the syllables, not having that element where we're stretching, for example, on characteristics, that the ris is long and character is quick. We also have a tendency sometimes to stress the incorrect syllable. So perhaps if you have a similar word in your native language, or often if you learned a word from reading it and you didn't hear it first, you might think that it has a different stress pattern than it does. So last week we looked at a couple examples of this. Here's one that I commonly hear, which is on words like myself, or himself, or yourself, that oftentimes I will hear people stressing the first syllable of these words. They might say myself or himself. And what we really want is to be stressing the word, the second syllable, self, and having the first syllable be short. So myself, not myself. You can try thinking about it as baba, baba, short, long, myself. And then once you can say it that way, make sure you try to say it in some sentences as well. Because what will happen is that if you have that stored in your brain with the wrong stress pattern, it will be difficult to change it when you're speaking in a longer sentence. So for example, with myself, I could say, I did it myself. He did it himself. I just stressed himself to instead of himself. He did it himself. You can do that yourself. So trying to build those into sentences and get some practice integrating that into your speech. So that's one example of stressing the incorrect syllable. How do I know what syllable should be stressed? This is something that's actually marked in the dictionary. And last week we looked at how to do that. So you can check my channel page, Speech Modification Seattle, and look at past live streams, and look at last week, which was March 30th, 31st, 29th, last Friday. We looking at the Oxford Learner's Dictionary and seeing the symbols. So we'll talk about that again briefly later in this broadcast, but it is marked in the dictionary. And the other reason I like the online dictionary is that I can listen to the word and I can repeat it and really start to hear and repeat and get that pattern in my brain. So that rather than saying myself, I'm hearing myself, I'm repeating myself, and I'll see how it's marked that self has the stress. Good. We had another question. Looks like that disappeared. So another issue that can come up with longer words is that when we have a word that has many different variations, that we tend to have, there's differences in pronunciation. And so, for example, if I'm looking at a word like product, in that word, the first syllable is stressed, product, and it has a clear vowel, the ah vowel, product. I have to check the vowel myself. Okay, so stress syllable. In the dictionary, it's marked with a little line before it. I like to mark it by underlining it for the length of that syllable and making a short mark for the short one. So product has the stressed syllable in the first syllable and a clear vowel, product. But if I look at the word production, then I have second syllable stress. The first syllable is shorter and the vowel changes. It's no longer product, production, it's production. So my first vowel becomes that schwa sound. This one sounds like pra. The first one sounds like pra, product, and the second one sounds like pra because it's quick. So long and short. Production. So my stress comes on the duck and then unstressed on shun, another sound, another schwa vowel. So we may have a tendency with words like product and production to mispronounce them or do the incorrect vowel or incorrect syllable stress because they're similar in terms of how they're spelled, particularly if you, as I said, if you've learned them by spelling them. So I do have a number of videos for specific words and phrases like product and production on my website, speechmodification.com, and on my channel page. So you can use the search tools there to see if I already have a video or help for you on a particular word. If you find that I don't have help for you on your word, you can come to class and ask me, or you can send me an email or leave a comment saying, help me with this particular word. I'll tell you where I have help for that, or I'll make you a video for pronouncing your particular word. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, it's a good idea because you can click on the bell for notifications and then YouTube will let you know when I've uploaded a new video or when I have a live class that you can join. So I suggest doing that if you haven't already. Junior saying hi, and he has a difficult phrase, which is mortal world. Yes, that is difficult. That's difficult for Americans as well. So mortal has a couple of things going on with it. So the word mortal has an or. So when I'm having to do OR will either say or with an O, or it'll say in this case, mortal, it says the or. So more, that's my symbol for more. And then the T doesn't say T. We don't say mortal in American English. We say mortal. It sounds more like a D. It's a flap T. So more dull. And then there's a syllabic L at the end of mortal, which basically means that I don't really say that vowel. I have a little, maybe small schwa sound, and then a final L sound, which it sounds like an ol, rather than a l, a light front L. So if I were to write this in a way to help you with it, I would write more, and then kind of dull with very little vowel, mortal, stress on the first syllable, mortal. World, as many of you know, is a word I talk about often in many contexts because it is challenging as well. And so world, in this word, my OR says So I want to think about it like were, like we were. So thinking were old, and then again, I have that back L, which kind of has a schwa sound, and my voiced D sound, world. I like to think about it as being two syllables, even though it's a one syllable word, world. It's helpful to go more slowly and say world, and make sure you have an and then the schwa sound, the old, world. My video on pronouncing girl will help you also with the word world because it breaks that down, how to go from that R to that final L, girl, world. So putting it all together, mortal world, mortal world. That's definitely something that the first time I said it, I had to slow down a little bit to make sure I was getting all those R's and L's correct. So thank you for that suggestion. It is definitely difficult. Okay, so we were talking about longer words and pronouncing syllables in longer words. Junior says he was reading it in Heroes of Olympus. Yes, I have a running list of words that are difficult to pronounce even for Americans. Words like rural, that's extremely hard. Juror, aurora. So I'll add mortal world to my list of very challenging words for Americans and non-Americans to pronounce. Good. So do check out speechmodification.com. I have lessons and videos to help you with these longer words. I'm going to put one here in the chat for you. And this video is, or this lesson is about words with second syllable stress. And so it has a big list of words and some resources to help you thinking about making sure that you're stressing the correct syllable in those words. I also have some videos on my channel you can look for, and those will be helpful. You're welcome. Another phenomenon I want to talk about, and I have some videos for, are words where sometimes we use the word as a noun and sometimes we use the word as a verb. So for example, words like project and project, or increase and increase, or record and record. So this isn't true for all nouns and verbs, just when there's one spelling for both. So if I'm talking about the noun, I have a project to finish. Then I have first syllable stress. The first syllable is long, project. And just like with product, project has an ah, vowel ah, project. With long and short, project. But if I'm using that as a verb, I need to project onto the screen, then it has second syllable stress. So it's short and then long, project, and the vowel changes. This letter O then says schwa, project, and the rest of the word is the same. And so what I want to note is that in neither of these words do we use the sound O. We either use an ah, project, or schwa, project. Again, this one sounds like pra. This one sounds like pra. And this is true for a number of other words that are either a noun or a verb. So just like project and project, we have increase and increase, record and record. And so the rule is first syllable gets stress when it's the noun, and second syllable gets the stress when it's a verb. I do have a video and a lesson on my website with more examples and some help for teaching you how to practice and change. And just to notice, you may have a tendency to use one or the other pronunciation for both the noun and the verb. Most of the time, if you do this, people will still understand what you're saying, but it can be helpful to be able to differentiate the two and make sure that you're not making that error. So I'm going to give you the video that has a lesson for this. I'll give you the link for that. And again, you can always use the search tools on speech modification and on my channel page to look for particular help with any of these types of patterns. Those are the main things I wanted to point out about longer words, that we need to know what syllable gets the stress so that we're stressing it correctly. And we want to use length and a clear vowel on our stressed syllable and move quickly and use unstressed vowels on the unstressed syllables. And that will help you sound more natural when using these longer words, and it will help you be more fluent to incorporate them into your speech. Fortunately, we tend to use just a few of these longer words. Most of our speech and conversation is shorter, not very long, not many syllable words. But you can take a look at your particular speech and what are some of the words that you frequently use. Maybe it's frequently, maybe it's actually, and make sure that you're pronouncing those words correctly. Use my tools on my website to help you find those. For example, I'll just show you one more time some of the resources here on speech modification. So you want to go to the free practice area and choose online practice free trial. And then you'll see that there's a search box and you can type in your word or what you're looking for. So if I'm going to just be wondering more to learn more about syllables, I'll type in syllable and I'll hit search. And what I'll find is that the website's going to show me all of the resources and lessons that have to do with syllables. So I have pronunciation errors, extra syllables, training on syllable stress, words with second syllable stress, etc. And so you can scan through the lessons and find some help. Here's the one about pronouncing nouns and verbs. I could also type in a word or a sound pattern that I'm looking for there in the search box, and that will help me. And again, I'm happy to help anyone who wants help with the resources. You can email me or leave a comment on one of my videos and give me your question, and I'll direct you to where you can find an answer. Many times, people have very similar questions because the things that are challenging for us in pronouncing American English are challenging for others as well. So I always appreciate your feedback and comments. It helps me know which videos to make and what topics to cover in our free classes. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to ask them now. We will return again next week on Friday, and we'll be back to our regular time of 12 o'clock Pacific time. We had a little bit of a late start today. If you're joining on Facebook, do check out the YouTube channel because you can find more live classes and more resources there for you for free. And if you're here in the Seattle area, I do hope you'll join my group classes. And if you're not in the Seattle area, you might want to consider my online courses or working with me one-on-one to improve your American accent. Thanks so much for being a part of class today and for your good questions and comments. I appreciate all of you. I'm Christine Dunbar for SpeechModification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. SpeechModification.com.